I want to thank you all for joining me here on this adult Sunday school class for this week, which is Sunday, June 6th, 2021. I apologize that it's just me, although we did have a recording earlier today, but had an error with it converting. So I'm just basically going to run through this just myself. And this is a continuation of last week. We were with Haggai and Zechariah last week, but we're going to continue on with Zechariah and see some of the visions that that he had, and some of them are very interesting. They compare very well with John's vision in Revelation, and you're going to see a lot of comparisons there, and we'll discuss those a little bit as we come to them. So let us begin. Let me pull up the share screen here so everyone can see what I'm seeing, and we will go from there. Say that. Let's pull that up. There we go. So in Zechariah 1, we start with verse 18. Then he looked up, and there before me were four horns. I asked the angel who was speaking to me, "What are these?" He answered me, "These are the horns that scattered Judah, Israel, and Jerusalem." Then the Lord showed me four craftsmen. Now, anytime we talk about horns, that can mean a couple of different things. Of course, the horns on the altar were used to cut the meat, to dash the meat, to separate the ligaments and tendons and things. But in most contexts in Hebrew literature, when you see the word horn, it means power or kingdom, and in this case, that's what it means. And specifically, it talks about the horns, the kingdoms that scattered Judah, Israel, and Jerusalem. Well, four of them. We've got Assyria and Babylon, definitely, and I believe it also includes Media and Persia as well, because we've got Cyrus and Darius that are here prior to what's going on in this text. So, and then the Lord showed me four craftsmen. We'll find out more about that. Verse 21, I asked, "What are these coming to do?" Well, he answered, "These are the horns that scattered Judah so that no one could raise their head. But the craftsmen have come to terrify them and throw down these horns of the nations who lifted up their horns against the land of Judah to scatter its people." So we get an answer to that question: is what are the craftsmen? Well, they're the ones who are coming to right the wrongs. God used Assyria and Babylon to discipline the children of Israel for their display of pride, their sin. Well, Assyria and Babylon took that too far, and so God is disciplining them as well through these four craftsmen. On to Zechariah chapter 2, verse 1. Then I looked up, and there before me was a man with a measuring line in his hand. I asked, "Where are you going?" He answered me, "To measure Jerusalem, to find out how wide and how long it is." While the angel who was speaking to me was leaving, another angel came to meet him and said to him, "Run, tell that young man, Jerusalem will be a city without walls because of the great number of people and animals in it." So as he's having this vision, he sees a man. Now he's talking to an angel, but all of a sudden this man shows up. I believe this may be one of those pre-incarnate sightings of Jesus in here to measure Jerusalem. Now, while he's talking to this angel, the man shows up, the angel goes off to leave, and then another angel appears and tells the first angel, "Hey, go catch that man with the measuring line and tell him this, that for the most part, you don't need to measure. There's not going to be any walls. It's going to be open to everyone, a great number of people and animals in it." On to verse 5. "And I myself will be a wall of fire around it, declares the Lord, and I will be its glory within. Come, come, flee from the land of the north, declares the Lord, for I have scattered you to the four winds of heaven, declares the Lord. Come, Zion, escape, you who live in daughter Babylon, for this is what the Lord Almighty says. After the glorious one has sent me against the nations that have plundered you, for whoever touches you touches the apple of his eye." This wall of fire around it, I believe, is an allusion to the eternal kingdom when God becomes the light and protection of the new Jerusalem, the new heaven and new earth. I will be the glory within. There will be no need for a temple because Christ, God, is that temple. And then after that, starting in verse 6, we've got a call from Zechariah now, or in Zechariah from God, a call to the people that are in exile to come home. We heard that in Haggai last week. Now we're hearing it from Zechariah. And it's wonderful in verse 8, because now we get God reminding the people of something God has told them through another prophet. And he's reminding them that you are the apple of my eye. And if anyone messes with you, they mess with me too. I will surely raise my hand against them so that their slaves will plunder them. Then you will know that the Lord Almighty has sent me. Verse 10, shout and be glad, daughter Zion, for I am coming and I will live among you, declares the Lord. Many nations will be joined with the Lord in that day and will become my people. I will live among you and you will know that the Lord Almighty has sent me to you. This, as I've mentioned before, in several times, prophetic visions often come in multiples. And so the prophets can't really, they have a depth perception issue. They can't tell what's happening sooner rather than later. And so they get these, they look at that history, prophetic history, kind of like a flat on hand, that they can see all these big events that are coming up, but they can't see all the valleys that are in between. And so I believe that's what's happening with these visions that Zechariah's had. He is seeing certain things happening in the far future, but he's also seeing things that are happening in the near future, and he can't differentiate between them. And so he's alluding to a future coming kingdom, but he's talking about the temple that's to be built and the new abode for God within the city that is about to be rebuilt. Verse 12, the Lord will inherit Judah as his portion in the Holy Land and will again choose Jerusalem. Be still before the Lord, all mankind, because he has roused himself from his holy dwelling. This is a call out to all mankind, not just Judah or Israel or Jerusalem, and as he said, differentiates between those, but all mankind. However, Judah is still his portion, and he chooses Jerusalem. That was the plan all along. That's why in John's revelation, he sees a new Jerusalem descending from heaven. Jerusalem was the initial, or that was the plan all along, for God to reside within Jerusalem. So you have to keep that in mind when you're talking about the covenant God made with Israel. And as Christians, we have to remember that the Jews were God's chosen people, and that we're grafted into that line as Gentiles, as non-Jews. So, chapter 3. Verse 1, then he showed me Joshua, the high priest, standing before the angel of the Lord, and Satan standing at his right side to accuse him. Now, a lot of people believe that the only allusion to Satan as an accuser, besides New Testament, but in the Old Testament, is in Job. And we can see in Zechariah here, that is certainly not the case, that Joshua, the high priest that came out of exile with the first groups in order to rebuild the temple. That was their purpose, to rebuild the temple. So here he is standing before the angel of the Lord, and he's being accused of, and we read on in verse 2, the Lord said to Satan, the Lord rebuke you, Satan, the Lord who has chosen Jerusalem, rebuke you. Is not this man a burning stick snatched from the fire? Now Joshua was dressed in filthy clothes as he stood before the angel, and the angel said to those who were standing before him, take off his filthy clothes. Then he said to Joshua, see, I have taken away your sin, and I will put fine garments on you. So Satan is accusing Joshua of not being worthy to be a priest of the Most High God. And as a push to say, look at him, he's dressed in rags, he can't be your high priest. Well, God takes care of that and tells the attendants around him to change his clothes. And God worries more about the inner character of the spirit of the person rather than the outward appearance of the person. We see that in Jesus' parable of the rich man and Lazarus, that it's about the character of Lazarus that overcame the evilness of the rich man who was in hell. In verse 5, then I said, put a clean turban on his head. So they put a clean turban on his head and clothed him while the angel of the Lord stood by. The angel of the Lord gave this charge to Joshua. This is what the Lord Almighty says. If you will walk in obedience to me and keep my requirements, then you will govern mine house and have a charge of my courts, and I will give you a place among these standing here. This is a big deal. In addition to the garments, he's putting a clean turban on his head. Of course, anything covering the head was a sign of reverence to God. So he's been completely re-robed, as if you look at the allusion in the New Testament, being given new robes as a sign of purification. And then God gives him this charge that if you will follow me, if you will be obedient to me, to my commandments, then you will have a place among these here. Now, who are these? That's the attendants that are there. That's the angels. Even Satan, as a former heavenly realm character, that this person Joshua, we'll get into the word name Joshua here in a minute, but I want to point out one of these things, that he's giving him a charge to govern his house and to have charge of the courts. That basically means that as high priest, he's going to be a governor of the temple, and he's also going to be in charge of the courts. He's going to be the judge. So Joshua is going to be the one completely in command. You notice there's no king that has come back with them, although God promised David that a continuance of the line. Well, I believe Joshua here is that line. And again, we'll get into the name here in a few minutes. But as we continue on, verse 8, listen, high priest Joshua, you and your associates seated before you, who are men symbolic of things to come. So that tells us that it's something for the future. We don't know whether it's near or far. I believe it's far based on what we read. I'm going to bring my servant, the branch. The branch. Now, we hear the word branch a lot. David was the branch of Jesse. And of course, Jesus is described as the branch of David. So I believe, with the word branch capitalized here, that branch is specifically alluding to a king of the line of David. Verse 9, see the stone I have set in front of Joshua. There are 7 eyes on that one stone, and I will engrave an inscription on it, says the Lord Almighty, and I will remove the sin of this land in a single day. Well, the stone with 7 eyes, 7 being the understanding that 7 is the sign or the number of divine completeness. So 7 eyes, meaning all seeing. It's kind of where we get the idea of God being omniscient or all knowing, all seeing. And God will remove the sin of the land in a single day. Verse 10, in that day, each of you will invite your neighbor to sit under your vine and fig tree, declares the Lord Almighty. So this stone with 7 eyes, this all-seeing God or stone is going to be set in front of Joshua. Again, we'll get into the name in a minute, and sin will be removed within a single day. And everyone invite your neighbor to sit under your vine and fig tree. These are allusions, I believe, to the coming Christ, the God incarnate in Jesus Christ. On to Zechariah chapter 4, verse 1. Then the angel who talked with me returned and woke me up like someone awakened from sleep. He asked me, what do you see? I answered, I see a solid gold lampstand with a bowl at the top and 7 lamps on it, with 7 channels to the lamps. Also, there are 2 olive trees by it, one on the right of the bowl and the other on its left. I asked the angel who talked with me, what are these, my Lord? We'll stop there. So Zechariah, in his visions, he's gotten so deep into his visions that the original angel that he was talking to has returned and woke him up like from a sleep. He's refocusing him on something else, and what that refocus is on this gold lampstand with a bowl at the top, and 7 lamps on it, and 7 channels to the lamps, and 2 olive trees, one on either side of the bowl. And we see an allusion from that in Revelation 3 or 4, where even earlier, where we hear that the churches are the 7 lampstands. analogy there. And two olive trees by it, one on the right of the bowl, other on the left. Of course, we can imagine. I believe this is a literal interpretation in the sense of what he's seeing, although it's figurative a little bit as to what's going to be going on. You've got the light provided by the lamps. You've got the 7 channels that are going to provide the oil to the lamps. But where's the oil coming from? They're coming from these 2 olive trees, one on either side. And we'll hear in a few more verses that there are channels from those olive trees to the bowl as well. And so Zechariah asks this angel, what are these things, my Lord? And the angel answers, do you not know what these are? No, my Lord. How would you like to ask that question and then an angel tell you, you don't know? I'm certain that we see things like that. We read in scripture where the disciples asked Jesus the same thing. And I can imagine Jesus with that divine eye roll, going, really, you don't know? So, but we merely answer, no, my Lord. Verse 6, so he said to me, this is the word of the Lord to Zerubbabel. Remember, Zerubbabel is one of the leaders that came out of exile with Joshua the high priest to help rebuild the temple. Not by might nor by power, but by my spirit, says the Lord Almighty. There is a song by Twyla Paris that I love that does that verse. If you ever get the chance to listen to that, it's a wonderful rendition of this verse. Verse 7, what are you, mighty mountain? Before Zerubbabel, you will become level ground. Then he will bring out the capstone to shouts of God bless it, God bless it. Basically, we'll read in another couple of verses that Zerubbabel, but basically this means that Zerubbabel, that leader who started building the temple with the altar, will remain there to place the final capstone. We'll see that here. Next slide. Verse 8, then the word of the Lord came to me. The hands of Zerubbabel have laid the foundation of this temple. His hands will also complete it. Then you will know that the Lord Almighty has sent me to you. Verse 10, who dares despise the day of small things, since the 7 eyes of the Lord that range throughout the earth will rejoice when they see the chosen capstone in the hand of Zerubbabel. Now we see that 7 eyes of the Lord. Now, a while ago, it was 7 eyes on the stone. So if we make that jump, we can say that the Lord is that stone. Jesus is that foundation. But if we use that same illusion of 7 eyes of the Lord, or 7 natures of the Lord, 7 spirits that we see in the book of Revelation, that the 7 spirits of God that go out to each of the 7 churches. I think that's what's going on here. And Zerubbabel will place the capstone. Verse 11, then I asked the angel, what are these 2 olive trees on the right and the left of the lampstand? Again, I asked him, what are these 2 olive branches besides the 2 gold pipes? There's those pipes that pour out golden oil. He replied, do you not know what these are? No, my Lord. It's the same thing. We've been given a little bit of information. We want more, we want more, we want more, but we should already know. Verse 14, so he said, these are the 2 who are anointed to serve the Lord of all the earth. So there's more to it than just the literal vision that Zechariah is seeing. I will posit that throughout scripture, we see these allusions of 2 who are anointed to serve the Lord in all the earth. We see Moses and Elijah. When Jesus on the day of transfiguration, the 3 disciples, Peter, James, and John, see 2 who are like Moses and Elijah that are there. John and Jesus, John the Baptist and Jesus, are both at some point compared to Moses and Elijah come back. When we get to John's Revelation, we see 2 witnesses which were like Moses and Elijah. And so I believe that these 2 olive trees are meant to be these same types, these same analogies to Moses and Elijah. Now, why those 2? Well, to a Jew, to Hebrews who are reading this or hearing this, they will understand that whenever they hear the word Moses, the name Moses, they automatically think of the law. Whenever they hear the word Elijah or the name Elijah, they automatically think of the prophets. And even Jesus says certain times, I mentioned that parable of Lazarus and the rich man in hell begging Jesus to let Lazarus, let Moses and Elijah, to let him come back. To come back and tell his brothers, to tell his family, so they don't end up in the torment that he's in. And Jesus, in that moment, tells that rich man, well, they've got the law and the prophets. They've got Moses and Elijah. And so I believe that's what is being alluded to here. And I think you start to see with this the grand plan that God has, that this was the plan from the very beginning, because it keeps going back to this. This covenant with the Jews, the covenant with Israel does not go away. And we as Christians have to understand that we are grafted on to that as Christians. We're grafted into that covenant, this new covenant, if you will. But Israel is the beloved and the chosen, and we have to read Scripture with that understanding in mind. On to chapter 5 of Zechariah, verse 1. I looked again, and there before me was a flying scroll. The angel asked me, what do you see? I answered, I see a flying scroll, 20 cubits long and 10 cubits wide. Verse 3, and he said to me, this is the curse that is going out over the whole land. For according to what it says on one side, every thief will be banished, and according to what it says on the other, everyone who swears falsely will be banished. There's a few things this could be. If we, again, I believe that Zechariah is seeing within this vision, he's seeing the eschatological moment. He's seeing the fulfillment of the kingdom, the end of the tribulation period, as we understand in Revelation. The scroll that the Lamb was the only one worthy to open, the 7 seals, the 7 trumpets, the 7 bowls. Well, this is that scroll finally open. So it's the end of the tribulation period, and we see how long it is. On one side, it names that every thief will be banished. Basically, what I believe that means is thieves. What thievery is the taking away of something that belongs to someone else. So if you are guilty of theft, if you're guilty of taking away something that belongs to someone else, you'll be banished. So whether that be life, whether that be hope, whether that be whatever. And then the other side, everyone who swears falsely will be banished. Everyone who lies or bears false witness. Of course, both of these are part of the 10 Commandments. But bearing false witness is attributing to someone something that does not belong to them. So you see the difference of taking away something that does, but giving something back that doesn't belong to them, or does not exemplify them. And those are dangerous things. And so I believe it is a meaning that all evil, it encompasses all evil within that realm, and evil will be banished at the end of the tribulation. Verse 4, the Lord Almighty declares, I will send it out, and it will enter the house of the thief and the house of anyone who swears falsely by my name. It will remain in that house and destroy it completely, both its timbers and its stones. Then the angel who was speaking to me came forward and said to me, look up and see what is appearing. I asked, what is it? He replied, it is a basket. Then he added, this is the iniquity of the people throughout the land. I'm going to continue on, and this will make a little more sense based on my remarks. Verse 7, then the cover of lead was raised, and there in the basket sat a woman. He said, this is wickedness. And he pushed her back into the basket and pushed its lead cover down on it. Then I looked up, and there before me were 2 women with the wind in their wings. They had wings like those of a stork, and they lifted up the basket between heaven and earth. Where are they taking the basket? I asked the angel who was speaking to me. That first part, so there's this basket that appears, and in it is the wickedness. It's the sin, the iniquity of the land. God and previous verses said that in one day God will remove that iniquity. And so I think this is the fulfillment. And what Zechariah is seeing is he's seeing the end event. He's seeing not only the end tribulation, he is seeing beyond that through the millennial period, the 1,000 years, the millennial period, where those humans who have survived the tribulation live in the land for long periods of time, along with those who were martyred for their faith, who were brought back to live there. And so throughout this 1,000-year reign of peace, it gets to the very end of that. Now, where is the accuser? Where is Satan in all this? He's been bound. He's been cast into a bottomless pit and sealed with Michael as the key holder. Well, at the end of that millennial reign, the pit is opened briefly, and I think that's what this lead cover is alluding to. Is the Michael opens the lead cover for a brief period, and in that brief period, Satan infects some of those that are remaining after that millennial period, and then suddenly pushes Satan back into the basket, pushes the cover back on it for all eternity. A lot of different scholars can interpret this in different ways, but that's my understanding. And then there's two women with the wind in their wings. Could they be angels? Yes. Could they not be angels? Sure. Certainly, God has used women before. Priscilla and Aquila in Paul's gospel, God used them to help lead a church. They lift the basket between heaven and earth. And where are they taking the basket? And that's where we join again. So the last verse in chapter 5, verse 11, he replied, to the country of Babylonia to build a house for it. When the house is ready, the basket will be set there in its place. I believe this is part of the whole plan of God. Babylon is meant to exemplify evil. In John's revelation, if we compare that, we have the whore of Babylon that resides there, the sin of the land. So I think this is an allusion to that. On into chapter 6, I looked up again, and there before me were 4 chariots coming out from between 2 mountains of bronze. Now remember, when in Zechariah 1, at the beginning of that, we see these 2 mountains of bronze appear in his vision. So we're back to the beginning of that vision now. The first chariot had red horses, the second black, the third white, and the fourth dappled, all of them powerful. If we compare that to Revelation chapter 3 or 4, we will see that what we know as the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, here they're chariots of horses. But the same colors with one minor difference: red meaning war, black meaning famine, plague, white meaning judgment, and dappled or pale in Revelation meaning death. And so Zechariah sees these horses. He's seeing things in a different order, because he can't differentiate where things lie in the future. What are these, my Lord? Verse 5, the angel answered me, these are the 4 spirits of heaven going out from standing in the presence of the Lord of the whole world. The one with the black horses is going toward the north country. The one with the white horses toward the west. The one with the dappled horses toward the south. We don't hear about the red horses. Well, I think Zechariah just missed that. There's so much to take in that he missed where the red horses went. The red horse is already gone. I believe some. Of course, in Revelation, we don't see them going in any particular direction. I think it's just mentioned in this way because this is kind of how Zechariah was able to interpret it in his mind. But they go all throughout the whole world in the book of Revelation. Verse 7, when the powerful horses went out, they were straining to go throughout the earth. And he said, go throughout the earth. So they went throughout the earth. That's a lot of statements of going throughout the earth. Basically, these horses have a purpose. These charioteers have a purpose. They are grinding at the bit to get going, and they can't move until they're given the word. And so God, or the Lord, finally says, go throughout the earth, and they take off. It's like a greyhound race, and the greyhounds are ready to go, and then the rabbit is released and off they go. So it's kind of that understanding. Verse 8, then he called to me, look, Those going toward the north country have given my spirit rest in the land of the north. Verse 9, the word of the Lord came to me, take silver and gold from the exiles, Heldai, Tobijah, and Jedaiah, who have arrived from Babylon. Go the same day to the house of Josiah, son of Zephaniah. The first part of that, look, those going towards the north country, remember those are the black horses, have given my spirit rest in the land of the north. Black meaning plague or famine. I believe this is God's judgment on Babylon for persecuting the Israelites during their disciplinary time in exile. And then all of a sudden we're back to focusing in on the temple, which is interesting because it seems like the vision has just suddenly come to an end. And then in verse 9, we're back at the purpose of why Zechariah is having these visions. If you remember, when the first group was leaving, when Darius was letting the exiles come back, they were given silver and gold. Well, it talks about the silver and gold from these particular three people, I believe, who were the financiers, those who were in charge of the treasury for the purpose of rebuilding the temple. Well, they have finally arrived. And there's been a 17-year period between when the altar was built, when the first exiles came back, the altar was built, and finally the money is coming. The next parts of the groups are coming into the land. So they're taking it to Josiah, son of Zephaniah. Verse 11, take the silver and gold and make a crown and set it on the head of the high priest, Joshua, son of Jozadak. We're going to talk about the name here after I read these verses. Tell him this is what the Lord Almighty says. Here is the man whose name is the branch, and he will branch out from his place and build the temple of the Lord. It is he who will build the temple of the Lord, and he will be clothed with majesty and will sit and rule on his throne, and he will be a priest on his throne, and there will be harmony between the two. I believe here that we are seeing Zechariah finally trying to make sense of the two things. Zechariah is realizing that that he has seen two different parts in history that relate to one another. First, he's seeing the high priest that's come back from exile, Joshua, but that this branch that was mentioned earlier in his vision is not this Joshua, but yet another Joshua. The name Joshua in Hebrew is Yeshua, and it's where we get the name Jesus. And so Jesus being that branch, or Joshua, everything's going to branch out from that. That's the going out into the world of Christianity, to the gospel message of hope, of salvation. He will be the one who builds the temple of the Lord, that brings about the foundation of the temple through the apostles and further on through disciples and even us as Christians. He will be clothed with majesty. He will sit and rule on his throne. He will be a priest on his throne. So it's one throne, and that one person, Jesus, will be a king and he will be a priest. And there will be harmony between the two. He will rule and judge. He will rule with both honor, and he will rule with justice within those two. And the harmony, the word harmony here gives this connotation that it will be ingrained so much that the two cannot be separated. So we have a great hope to look forward to when Jesus takes the throne in the fully realized kingdom to come. And verse 14, the crown will be given to Heldai, Tobijah, Jedaiah, and Hen. There's a new name, son of Zephaniah. Remember, Josiah was the son of Zephaniah too, as a memorial in the temple of the Lord. Those who are far away will come and help to build the temple of the Lord, and you will know that the Lord Almighty has sent me to you. This will happen if you diligently obey the Lord your God. So this last phrase is that renewal of covenant that God is giving through Zechariah. obey my commandments. I will abide in you. You will abide in me, as we hear in the Gospels. It's all part of God's plan. All we have to do is follow God. So that ends today's lesson. I thank you for putting up with me in this. The next time we meet, we're going to be going back to the temple. There's been a 17-year break. And so we're going to, the next time we meet, we're going to be in the book of Ezra, chapters 5 and 6, and then again back in Zechariah, chapters 7 and 8. We look forward to seeing you, and God bless.